Welcome to the Texas Panhandle Builders Association TPBA Builder Talk podcast, where we'll bring you expert advice from the heart of Amarillo building community. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting in the trade, our goal is to keep you informed on the ever-evolving building codes, share best practices, and help you excel in your craft. From innovative design ideas to smart material selections and everything in between, we're here to support you in every aspect of home building. Each episode, we'll dive into the topics that matter most to builders, contractors, and industry professionals, ensuring that you stay ahead of the curve in this rapidly changing landscape. Our discussions are shaped by the experiences and knowledges of our hosts and guests, providing you valuable perspectives that you can apply directly to your work. The views and the opinions expressed are those of the host and the guest and may not always reflect the most up-to-date or accurate information. Let's build something great together, one conversation at a time. Welcome back to the TPBA Builder Talk podcast. We're excited to bring back the third podcast. It's actually going to be a re-record for us.
Fourth.
Hopefully we've got some good audio on this now that we've got a few things figured out here. But today's topic, we're going to be talking about wall assemblies, one that we're all familiar with, especially on our second recording. Hopefully we bring some good information and some good insight on here. But
And who are you?
I'm Jordan with Caprock Design Build.
I'm Ben Hardesty, Southwest Sales.
I'm Joel Rafton, For the Duration Homes.
I'm Robert Downing, RDS Inspection Service.
And we're all part of the TPBA Builder Association for Amarillo. So if you guys are listening to this and not familiar, come join. Come have a luncheon with us, talk to some of us, see what we can do to help you out with your business.
It's a great networking opportunity, and Jordan buys
Absolutely.
lunch.
That's right. And
He hasn't yet, but we're pushing for it. We're pushing for it.
soon, it'll happen soon. And
Really, we should have some sort of special deal. Be the first one to get the free lunch, and you get a free hat.
so
something.
now a lunch and a hat I've got to give
Well, maybe
away.
or a free something. We got the first one up to get something special. So let's, if you're out there, be the first guy to get that free lunch and come check out our luncheon.
That's right. The other thing we got to bring up is we're in the middle of working up for some sponsorship opportunities. We don't have those classified yet, broken down, price
Right.
points on them. But if that's something that you guys are interested in, we'd be more than happy to kind of entertain your.
And we can give your hats away.
Yeah, we can probably do that.
Yeah, if you sponsor us hats, we'll be wearing them and we'll be giving them away.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's get on to the subject today, guys. This is a fun one. Wall assemblies. What we're going to do is talk about the common and not so common wall assemblies and a brief overview, and then I think we'll emphasize a little bit more on our wood framed walls, which is what we have going on around here.
So everybody sees.
Somebody want to start us off with the list? Anybody?
Ben, why don't you read the list?
Yeah, for sure.
And we didn't last time. We forgot to write down the igloo.
Igloo,
When
yeah.
we going to investigate igloos as a wall assembly?
I don't think that's really going to work very well, except for maybe like 1 month.
Not in this town.
Maybe two,
No.
maybe a week.
No.
Oh, okay.
But,
It worked one day and not the next. That's what happened.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So as far as the uncommon stuff, 3D printed
Yep.
is one that we talked about. Obviously not common right now. Not necessarily going to stay that way.
Not locally common.
Not locally. No, Georgetown down around Austin has a development of them, and then and what I've heard so far, they've sold all the houses,
Pre-sold.
pre-sold. Yep.
Yep.
I would say that it's going to get legs and we're going to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just cutting edge. It's new.
Yep.
You know, I mean, this is new as something that was 100 years ago new.
It is.
But it's robotics.
Labor
and that's always cool. Everybody likes to see a robot, you know. So that's half the fun right there, you know.
I think with the shortage that we've got in the trades, that's a big play for it.
Yeah.
Right.
So what it is just a quick overview. It's a machine that's set up over where the foundation would be, and it is like an ice cream dispenser of concrete that
It's
that
squeezing
layers
toothpaste, just a big old squeeze.
layers on top of itself and builds a wall up with kind of a hollow core. And you know we've gotten into the carbon offsets. I think it'll have a challenge with until we get recycled concrete. That'll be a big role player in that. But it's an interesting wall system.
Now, do you think it'll be, as far as from efficiency standpoint, we talked a little bit about thermal mass and all that.
Oh, you remembered.
I remember things occasionally.
Or you looked it up.
So thermal mass is tricky. Thermal mass works in a shoulder climate very well because it heats during the day, so it gives off its warmth that it's absorbed throughout the day during the night, right? During the night, the wall cools off, so it's cooling the house during the day as that wall is heating up. It's got a delayed temperature.
It's hard.
transaction.
It's hard to put a value on it. It's almost
It is.
an invisible cool thing.
I'm-
We know it's there. We know it does what it does, but what does it really do?
I'm sure there's a calculated way to do it, but I
Oh,
have
yeah.
no idea how that works. The problem
There's
with
an app
us
for that.
here is,
There's an app for your phone. You just sit there and it'll
Hey,
read.
Siri.
Yeah, it'll read the 2 or 3 days worth and tell you what the thermal mass index is.
there's the lack of benefit here is summertime when we hit 105 degrees, we're still 85 at night.
At night,
and
yeah.
we're still running an air conditioner. Well, that wall is still giving heat off at night, and so it's not a benefit. It's the same in the wintertime, where we're not really gaining anything from it because it's so cold outside that it's harder to heat the house. But in a shoulder climate, I think it works really well.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it yet to.
You don't know enough about thermal mass, or you know enough about
No, I don't know enough about the
I mean,
concrete 3D printed
if
houses.
you throw the thermal mass thing out, okay, we touched
Yeah.
base on that. The structure of it. What do you think about the huff and puff and blow my house down thing?
Yeah, I think it'll withstand.
You still have.
You still have a wood roof.
You've got a wood roof, which
there's
is
no
the first,
rebar in
the
it.
first failure in a tornado.
Right.
Your interior, I think the majority of your interior, you're probably still wood framing. I've seen them that got interior 3D printed for sure, but there's limitations with it, with running wire, plumbing. All those things have to be
Pre-planned.
preset, pre-planned.
It's robotics, man. They'll have that down.
Remodelability is not a good option with it. So there's some things to figure out for sure, but I think it's got legs, like we said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you guys if you want to go on YouTube and just take a peek at it, it's 3 minutes worth of a watch, you'll be shocked. You go, really? That the machine? It's almost mesmerizing. You just sit and watch it go around and around, waiting for it to miss. Waiting for it to ooze off the side. It doesn't.
No,
It's a robot.
that's neat.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Go to the next one.
So we were already talking about thermal mass and stuff. So straw bale, Adobe, and rammed earth wall assemblies, they're kind of all fall in that same category.
Kind of.
Straw-
So the
straw bale.
straw bale is an insulator.
Okay, so that does have an R value.
it's
per
a
se.
gigantic backing.
Yes.
It's just a big backer board that holds up the outside and the inside.
Let's jump to the rammed earth because that is
Yep.
a thermal mass.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know
You're
if
leaving,
any of it
you're
around
leaving
here.
Chicken Little out with the straw house, huh?
Well, we'll get back to the straw house, but
Ram dirt.
rammed earth, it's a formed wall where they put layers of dirt in and compact it. It's a really neat looking wall. It doesn't have remodelability. You don't have a way to run wires in it, plumbing in it.
What's the reinforcement? Just the pack?
It's just the
It's
dirt
just
wall.
yeah,
They're not throwing
compacted.
rebar in as they go or anything.
Nope.
Just pack.
Not that I'm aware of.
Just compacted dirt and
Yeah. I think there's a specific blend of dirt that they put in it. I'm not sure what that is because I'm not super familiar with it. I've seen rammed earth
but they're using
walls
concrete forms, just like they would pour a concrete
That's
wall
right.
and they're packing dirt.
and layers. Yeah,
I get it.
And you see the striations like you would here in Palladier Canyon walls. It's kind of similar.
So you
to that.
think that there's special dirt that you wouldn't see in every jurisdiction, every area? I mean, like our dirt is a certain kind of dirt. Would
Yeah,
it
there's
be?
variation in it for sure. Regional variation in it.
No, I'm saying is there some dirt that just wouldn't work with that kind of wall? I mean, like if you.
I would suspect that's. I would
maybe
suspect that'd be
sand?
true. Yeah, sand. Sand's not gonna.
I mean, our dirt isn't really great dirt.
No.
No,
I'm just saying. So maybe the engineering point of view, they'd say, hey, back to the climate zone or the zonal areas, that would be something you would see in other areas more than you would at the beach.
I think it's an architectural look and a call out for aesthetics more than anything. Because the locations I've seen it have been on pretty high end houses, and it's almost like it's an accent wall within the house, which makes a super cool accent wall. So it's not even something that you're not gonna build a whole house out of it. It's usually like one or two walls in the house, and they're trying. And it's usually also in climates where they're taking advantage of that thermal mass, and they're trying to get that passive heat.
And by the way, all of these wall assemblies, other than the igloo, are all in the code.
Yes, they are.
These are all, we aren't just making this up.
No, absolutely
you
not.
can
No,
go
the
to-
green building code's full
Yeah.
of most of it.
Yeah.
Speaking of making stuff up, I do have a correction for the last podcast. We were talking about concrete wicking up moisture,
Oh yeah.
and so I brought up how far the concrete wicks up moisture, which is a long ways. That part wasn't incorrect. I quoted 16 miles. Just to correct myself, it's actually 6 miles. Not that that's going to affect any of our buildings in the difference here, but did want to throw that correction.
Next
out
week
'cause
it will be 5 miles. So stay tuned for the corrections. They'll
the
be coming.
correction.
Yeah, or, then we all come to reality that it wicks up about 3 inches. Yeah,
It doesn't wick it up at all.
yeah, right.
All right, let's go on to the next wall.
So Adobe, we can go over Adobe real quick.
So Adobe and Straw Bale, those probably can go pretty close together. Straw Bale is exactly what it sounds like. They're stacking up straw bales for the structure of the wall, and then it's getting a coating of mud or adobe or cement, kind of the air barrier, the water control layer, the rest of the assembly that wall's needing. The straw bale is making the base structure and the insulation of it. And those are, it's kind of a, for lack of better terms, kind of a hippie wall.
Yeah.
Jeez, we can't say that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna say that.
they can correct
But you
us
can't, 'cause you
on the
used to be a
email that we
hippie.
don't have established yet.
Yeah, exactly.
You used to be hippie, so you could say that.
Yeah. And the Adobe, I mean, the Adobe houses that I've seen, I understand why they work, and the Adobe blocks and bricks, and those are remodelable.
Have remodelability.
Thank you.
Remodelable bowl.
Yes.
That's what you were doing.
absolutely, yes.
Remoldable.
So it's, that has some legs to it, and they still build a lot of them in Santa Fe. Now, I don't know if all of them are 100% the Adobe block with the mud and everything.
Just like a
on it,
CMU
but-
block with the big schmear on the back on the outside. Is that what you, or so what's the core structure of
The
an
core
Adobe?
structure is actually a sun-dried Adobe block.
Okay.
It is. I've gone through some of the developments where some of the older developments in Santa Fe where they've been remodeling them, and that's a pretty cool. It's really different looking. How Amarillo skipped looking a little bit like Santa Fe, I don't know exactly, but I think the ranchers had something to do with that.
So the Adobe, it's effectively just a mixture of mud, sand, and straw, right? In the brick, and then
Yeah, they put them in a mold. They pack it in a mold, and they
Lay it
set
on
them
the
out
sun,
for
huh?
sun dry, and they pull the mold off of them and
Yeah, building
start
blocks.
setting.
building materials. Yeah.
So that's probably a good segue into our masonry walls.
Yeah,
A couple different versions there.
We do. So we've got brick, we've got CMU, we've got stone.
yeah,
I think most everybody that's going to be listening to this podcast can probably imagine all of those. The only one that might be misconstrued is going to be the brick wall, because we're used to seeing it as a
veneer.
veneer and not a true
And
like a row lock,
Right.
where we've got two courses of brick that are tied with a perpendicular brick every so often to tie those two walls together. That makes a structural wall.
So when they do a true brick building, what's the inside framed as? Wood framed in sheetrock? I mean, like some of
Yeah.
the old courthouses
Sure.
from these little towns you drive through. The outside you're saying is a true brick structural wall, but then from the inside, then they just like skeleton frame it?
Yeah, I mean, because
Is that what they
you
do?
can mount a stud wall to brick pretty easily, and so I think that's kind of what they had going on at the time. Now we would use screws. I would imagine that they had masonry nails that they would do that with.
Yeah.
So now we would kind of counterframe it and then insulate it and sheetrock it, and
It's
do
a
our
much
thing.
quicker process with better insulation, cheaper materials, better control layers. The way we've applied these veneers on,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
and it also gives you a chance to remodel the look of that without having to have a whole new wall reassembled.
People,
they-
so in modern day, people are doing brick walls, structural brick walls today.
I would assume that they somewhere out there they are. They were definitely a lot more common 50,
20s.
50, 60, 70 years ago.
Right.
And you saw it more in a commercial application than you did a residential. Residential, if you were, I would think they were probably more like stone walls and combined with log cabins and that kind of look because it was a resource that was available to them.
But in some of the historical pictures on these brick, bank buildings from the turn of the century, you see, they're 3 stories
Yeah.
or higher. So they just ran that brick until they couldn't reach any further, and then they build what kind of roof structure on it? Flat roof.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of them are probably flat
So they
roof.
just framed in a flat roof out of whatever
They
timbers.
had pitch available, so it wasn't any. I mean, they heated up and poured on the.
When I've seen those block walls, Joel, you had the block wall, and then most of the time it was like steel web girts that were hanging between those 2 block walls, and that's what supported that roof. And so they had a pretty big clear span, like you would see in a storefront. But I haven't seen a brick structure wall in a residential home. Not that it can't be out there.
Just haven't run into it.
If you
yet.
got one, you give us a call. We'll take a field trip.
We will. Now, in CMU, we don't typically have CMU walls around here for residential, but coastal definitely does.
Yeah.
It's probably the go-to on coastal.
I ran into a lot of CMU block, in the Northwest.
So CMU is just your standard
cinder
cinder
block.
Okay, just
Cinder
wanted to clarify.
block, and that's it. No R value. The inside's block, the outside's block. It's block. It's down and dirty block.
And they make breakaway walls with it and all that for tide and hurricanes. And there's a lot that goes into it. We just, we have commercial buildings around here built that way, and that's about it.
Right.
So most of our masonry here on residential is all going to be a veneer.
Yeah, the block walls you see in the commercial application, they just start scaffolding up and away they go, and then
Yeah.
next thing you know, they got a grocery store.
Yep.
And those go quick.
There's a good example of a brick wall that's structural if you think about it, and it's probably what surrounds over the colonies and greenways, right? So that's like a double layered. I think it is. I never saw it constructed,
I
but
don't remember.
it has a if it's not, it's got a simulated roll-lock course in it. So that's something to think about. Then there is brick patterns that simulate a roll-lock course that you'll see on the veneer or the facade of a house. But it's more or less to replicate what that look was for a true masonry wall.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was Ferguson's or Granger One when they did an addition to their warehouse. It was CMU.
Okay.
It was all CMU all the way up. So I do remember that because I was still working.
Yeah, the
for
commercial
city at
CMU
that
is
point,
cool,
yeah.
but the residential CMU not so much.
No, huh? No residential.
Well, what do we got next?
So, you guys made fun of me last time for calling it, saying the acronym SIPS. SIPS.
So get it right this time. What
Well,
is it?
but what does it stand for again? I can't remember.
Structural insulated panel system.
Got it. I'll forget it again. Don't worry.
Okay.
So the benefits and detriments of a SIP system.
You
in
know,
y'all's
that's funny.
opinion.
You and I were talking about SIPs
Yeah,
this morning, weren't
yeah,
we?
we were.
Yeah.
They're
It's a
so
sandwich
they're-
board.
they're-
It looks like an ice cream sandwich.
It does,
Yep.
and they're not built on site, so they have a production control to them.
They do.
When they arrive on site, the assembly is extremely quick. They usually have and can be adjusted, but significant R value amount.
Oh, for sure. They can make them as big as you want.
They can. That's kind of a lot of the positives. I don't know if you want to throw a couple more of them in there. There's some.
I
I don't know how they have a decent shear value.
I think they do.
You think
Yeah,
do?
they do. They're locked in at the bottom and locked in at the top, and
No, but you know they're how big are they? They're 4-foot panels.
yeah, they are.
So if you and they go together, not with studs at the end.
Yeah,
of each,
at the end of 4 feet. Yes, there is.
studs. So,
There
so
is a
basically,
stud.
any
Yes.
shear panel you have is a 4-foot shear panel.
Yes.
I was wondering how those are rated because they're not really in seismic zones, not where we live here.
Oh.
But I guess they wouldn't be that popular in seismic zones.
No, I
because you
wouldn't
can't
think so.
attach to the concrete. You can't have small shear panels. So yeah, I guess that would be a downside of them. I think having somebody that knows how to assemble them would be.
That
you would want.
is a chore.
That's key, and we talked about this on our first recording, because you've got such a big, thick wall that is insulated really well, and if you don't have those joints between each panel sealed really well, you get a high likelihood of dew point either on the inside or the outside of that panel, which could quickly rot away that wall. So the assembly is. To do it correctly is absolutely key, and then to have it perfectly sealed is absolutely key. And so if that's something you were considering, I would look at either going to the manufacturer or getting a manufacturer suggestion of an installer.
Yeah,
So
and they all got them.
Absolutely.
They've all got them.
And once they're installed, then you're going to wrap it and tape everything. Then you're just going to seal it as tight as you could possibly can.
Do a fluid applied or something along
Yeah.
those lines.
But what we were talking about this morning was we still like the idea for a roof only.
Yeah, and that's not something I've seen a lot of, but it makes sense. And I think
seen any.
SIPs have really they've come into the market a lot in probably the last 7 years.
At least. And I think with the energy codes changing and getting a lot more stringent, I think there's going to be, for sure, a good application for SIPs. Now, I don't know. We're a spray foam world here, so I don't know.
And the other part about putting that on a roof is they're usually built for like clear span.
Yeah, they are.
So you're not having to worry about putting girts and supporting members underneath
No.
it. It could give you really good attic storage or mechanical storage that's in a conditioned space.
Or just open, or just a vaulted
ceiling.
And
Yeah, there's a lot of options with it that I could see.
When you say clear span, they're still 24 on centers.
Well, it's clear span in the aspect that you don't have supporting girts or supports coming down from those girts onto load-bearing walls to actually support that panel at its peak. It is. You have a panel that hangs off this wall and a panel that hangs off this wall, and they meet together, and that's it. That's self-supporting by itself. So everything under it is a clear span from wall to wall. So you wouldn't have to have a framed out wall. You could literally have, and I don't know what the max distance that you can reach, but you could have a 40 by 40 room that's no framing in between it and a clear span roof SIP panel sitting on top of it.
I wonder how they are for cost.
I think here they're probably a little bit expensive because we don't have them real local, and you'd have to transport them.
Well, I'm not thinking about the whole house, but
Just-
really the roof. I mean, they come in 4x10s, 4x8s.
I think it depends
much.
on the
Four-
manufacturer too.
let's see, 4x8, 4x9, 4x10, 4x12, and anything over a 4x12 you call the manufacturer, because those OSB sheets
Yeah,
come in
really-
4 foot by 24 foot. So
They'll come to fit.
they will cut them.
So you could get a pretty good load of stacked SIPs panels, and if you had the right skill set, you can use them as roof sheeting.
Yep.
And you can have a really good day. But you're saying that you could take a section of a room, and you could cut those at the pitch, and then tip them up and put them in a room, and they're not going to kick out.
Yeah, they've got
They got a system.
they've got a system figured out where they're
So
kinda
it's
interlocking.
so it's an actual roof rafter framing all in one package.
It is.
I guess I didn't really realize that. I was thinking it was more of a just drop it on the rafters, and thank you very much for the R value.
There's two of them. There's two SIP panel homes over on Fairfield Street, and now those had roof rafters in them. And we used 4x10 or 4x12s. I don't remember.
And that was probably at the beginning of the SIPS panel being around, and that was the original way of using them. Now they've kind of innovated them some.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what this engineering and the snow load is on a clear span.
Again, I think a lot of that's going back to the manufacturer of those, because I know they all have their own specs now. They're meeting requirements, but they've got their own technologies,
They do.
their own interlocking mechanisms, and so
I think it'd be worth looking into.
I agree. Which leads us right into the other one, which is like a what am I trying to say here? A preformed wall.
tilt up?
No,
Like a Simpson wall.
what do we have it on our list here somewhere? Let me just take a look. We have,
Some kind of pre-assembled wall.
yeah, that's exactly what I was going for.
I've used the pre-assembled walls like a portal framing, where you need a pre-assembled shear wall at the end of a small little section.
We're not talking about ready frame, are we?
No.
I'm not talking about like an optimized frame, but they're still not built on site, but they're not standardized in a 4x12. You give your plan set, and they're building maybe a whole end wall that's got the window and door.
Oh,
cutouts
yeah,
in
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And so it's a prefab wall.
And it's coming
system.
and you deal with a crane.
You deal with the crane, and it's
I've
very
seen that.
similar to a SIPS because it is already pre-insulated. Wiring channels are already ran in it.
Right. I don't think it was
Specific
There's
window cutouts.
that's pretty
that's
European.
production.
There are some down by Austin. I know that are
Yeah.
getting into it. I think everybody just got an alert to
They're
interrupt
still
the
after that
podcast.
guy.
Do you know that person, Ben?
No, that
It did look
actually-
familiar.
This thing started at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 in the morning. It woke me up. You can't mute the blue ones.
Yep.
So we've got 3D printed Adobe, rammed earth, SIPs. We got into masonry framed. Did we talk about ICF? ICF's next on the
haven't
list.
talked about that
Yeah.
yet.
So ICF's also kind of what I would consider a close cousin of the 3D printed, right? So essentially concrete walls, just instead of being poured layer by layer, they're built up with insulated concrete.
Like
Block.
Legos.
Like Legos.
They absolutely snap together like Legos.
They do.
They make radius curves. They make 22s. They make, and the tools to set that up with is a sheath and a blade about that long.
Yeah.
And you walk around and you cut and you put them together and some duct tape.
Now they'll have for certain spanned openings, like if you've got a slider door that's 12 foot, that will be engineered, and you'll have
It's like a lentil.
special
They-
call. It's
little-
exactly what it is.
A little
It's a
rebar,
lentil.
little S hooks, and then a couple of 5 bars, and then you throw them into the foam and buck out the openings. So all the openings, they get bucked out with 2x12,
Yeah.
and you do some supports on those, and basically a buck is a box.
Right.
You slip them in there, and you do the lentil thing, and it's a little tricky to pour beneath those. So if you had a big 6050 window, you have a 3-sided 2x12 wooden buck, and at the bottom you do 2x4s, leaving the opening for the concrete to go in. And then you use a vibrator, and you can get it all to consolidate underneath the windows. That's something you have to kind of pay attention to. But you're right; it's just you're pouring concrete and you're leaving it.
So unlike the 3D printed house, you are getting insulation with that. You've got foam on both sides of that concrete being
Right.
poured.
And you're getting that thermal
But-
mass index.
That was it, yeah. But much like the 3D printed and the rammed earth, you are getting that thermal mass.
You're getting the same, right?
So they're sold oftentimes as a performance R value, and it'll be I've heard numbers as high as like a R30 performance value.
I've heard 45. I mean, there's a lot of marketing that surrounds ICF.
It is a misconception
Yeah.
because R value is not anything like a thermal mass. R value is
A real measurable item.
it's a and thermal mass may be, but they're lump summing those together and up in the R value, and really I think they're sitting around R15 still. I mean, we're
It's a
looking
fun wall to build. I mean, the fun meter's there. There's not a lot of stuff to pick up. you can grab
Yeah,
those,
and it's not heavy either.
you can grab that one of those forms, and you could do it by yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a real great leveling system with scaffolding that kind of goes with it. That's pretty lightweight, and it doesn't take much to do it.
No, but there's
They're expensive.
there's some nuances to it, right? You need to know what you're doing so you don't have blowouts, because you are still holding that concrete in with foam, and if you go about it willy-nilly, build a tall wall and just start pouring concrete in there, you're going to have a bad day.
It's
Well,
a
they
certain-
use stiffeners and poles.
Well, but
and
they use
different-
pea gravel mix.
Yeah, they do.
So, and it's a different slump, and you have to kind of take it easy. And you're right. Well, anything can have a blowout, but that foam would blow out
Yeah,
probably easier than a wood form for sure.
sure.
Yeah.
And it's also in hand with the 3D printed. You're still doing a wood framed roof on it. So
Right.
it's sold oftentimes around here as a form of a tornado shelter, stronger house to live in. At the end of the day, roof still blows off. You still got a tornado tearing your house up, and it's still
Right.
dangerous to be inside of.
The only way I've ever seen them come across as a tornado shelter is if it's actually built as a tornado shelter.
Sure.
With,
To
with,
the-
with a light deck roof.
Yeah,
on it.
with a light deck roofing and the
Which-
extra rebar on top and all
Which
that
they
mess,
can do
but-
in a standard home or
Sure.
any one of these homes with either with concrete block, with formed concrete, with SIPs, not SIPs, with a ICF wall and then a concrete lid on it.
Yeah.
They're all going to be built the same. But the house that's built with ICFs and a wood framed roof is not a tornado shelter.
But the aside from
No.
the house and the tornado shelter thing, the ICF is a really great product for basements.
That's what I think their key use for.
You can't come out of the ground any cheaper.
Yeah, you and I, we talked about that this morning too at
Yeah.
breakfast, didn't we? Talking
Right.
about
That-
coming
that-
out for crawl
when
space
when do
or.
Ben and I get invited to this
Well,
breakfast?
it's not hard.
Probably, well, he's been there a few
I've been
times.
a few times. Yeah.
I guess I'm the
I think that
the black sheep over here.
Yeah.
No,
Next-
it's
next
just most
Friday.
of you
We
just
were
can't
actually
crawl out
talking
of bed
about-
by 6:30, 7
We were
o'clock.
talking about this morning about doing crawl space with
Yeah.
ICF stem wall.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big win too. If we can kind of turn the corner and get that done, you get a conditioned crawl space, non-vented conditioned crawl space.
Yep.
It's an easy, quick thing for trades to learn, so you don't have to try to find a guy with a couple trailer loads of forms, which seems to be rare around here. And you can do some crawl space. There was a lot that we were talking about this morning that was zero lot line clearance and had about a 4-foot differential from the two sides. You could build the lower lot, that whole side up with an ICF block as a retainage wall, and then build your house off of that as a crawl space. I think those are going to be really popular if people start paying attention to the pier and beam thing and the crawl space for sure. But I have to agree with you on the whole house thing, building the whole entire house out of it, not so much.
Is there any other issues with like installing? Did you have to have a different window or a different door pack
No.
No.
centered? Because I mean, you said they're
They're-
12-inch thick walls.
They can be installed with a window buck if you're doing like a flanged window, but you can also install those with what I call any window or inset window.
Yeah.
And there's advantages to both, and there's disadvantages to both. Part of it is what that builder's familiar with, and what the look is what they're going for.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. The look.
You can mount the window to the outside like a normal, operation, but then the inside you have an 11-inch windowsill.
Yeah.
You
You,
know,
got a real deep windowsill.
Yeah, well,
A window seat.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's a good place to put your beer.
Yeah.
You know?
It'd get too hot.
Right. But the doors kind of have to be inset to the inside, so they can hinge all the way around the door. So the doors are set, and the problem I have come across with that is a sill extension big enough to get the sill, the bottom
yeah,
piece, to get all the way out. That's an issue with those.
Gotcha.
But anyway, so what's next?
I was thinking swing back to hybrid since we've kind of talked about all the stuff that nobody really
We did,
sees out here.
and I think we'll lump in with the hybrid. Let's just go ahead and lump in steel frame with it. Because
Yeah.
Okay.
most of the time, our hybrids are going to consist of steel and wood.
Yes.
So that's a lot of times the way our barn doors around here are constructed. If they're not a complete wood frame, they've got steel columns and steel beams making up the rafters and the main
Right.
support of the wall. Some of them will have girts. Some of them they're framing wood in between, not using girts. Now, just to touch really quickly on the steel frame, a lot of our commercial buildings are solid steel frame.
Right.
Especially our big metal buildings that we've got that you see metal exterior, panel exterioring on.
Seems like a lot of the commercial buildings around here are just steel buildings.
Yeah.
I mean, every shop you go to, every little store, every little supply house is popped up a steel building.
Yeah.
Boom.
We're in one right now.
Yeah, I was fixing to say. Familiar. This is a hybrid.
It kind of is a hybrid in the fact that it's finished out steel building on the inside, but I would consider a true hybrid to be wood framing in between the steels, where you're actually using some of that wood as a supporting structure.
Gotcha.
This is a standalone
insulation.
steel that's finished out on the inside. But there's more hybrids than that, and it could be maybe you've got a rammed earth wall section in the house, and so
Sure.
maybe you've got a masonry wall somewhere. Maybe you've got some ICFs on a certain section of the house, or like you were talking about, building a stem wall. It's kind of a hybrid house, even though you're talking about framing on top of it. So hybrid's kind of endless, and it's hard to call all these a standalone because at some point in time you're using mixed materials to build.
Well, you got
that
the
wall
gauged steel, like I don't want to say tin can studs, but
Well, when you get down into a 14, 16 gauge stud, like a lot of the hotels are built with, that's pretty solid stuff.
It is. And the other good thing about it is it makes a perfectly straight wall. There's already knockouts in them to run your wiring through.
plumbing.
They're relatively easy to put up.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about coal and steel, just like you do with lumber. Lumber, I couldn't tell you what the percentage of it is, but there's a large percentage of it that we either have to send back or throw away because it's either wasn't cured well, or once it was cured and we got it to the job site and truck delivery, whatever that went through on temperatures and elements has caused that stud or piece of
What
wood.
percentage of lumber that comes out of lumberyard actually ends up back at the lumberyard, and what they do with it?
I try
Does
as
it
much as I
end
can.
up at Home Depot? Is that where it goes? Where's all the bad wood go?
I don't know if they throw it away and ask for a credit from the suppliers, or if they have it at a fixed cost. I've never asked
Maybe
that
they grind
question.
it up, and that's where OSB comes from, possibly. I can't
I
tell
mean,
you,
that would be a useful
Sure.
way to use that bad lumber.
in my framing days, when I was actually framing, I would everything would be crowned, everything would be bowed,
Right.
and if it wasn't to my standards of what I wanted in that house, I'd just toss it in that pile.
Mm-hmm.
And that pile is always a pretty good sized pile until lumberyard, hey, come pick up that pile.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying those 104 studs. I'll take these over here.
Yeah, and they will pick them up. And
Oh, yeah,
and we
you'll
do
get
try
credit on
to
'em.
we do try to help them out too, and use some of that for blocking and different.
There's a
things.
lot of not good wood.
There is.
That's what they turn into the finger joint studs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could be.
Get the
Could
straight
be.
sections.
I just often wondered. I mean, I'm not talking the last 10 years. I'm talking the last 30, 40 years. That's not new that wood is bowed and twisted.
Oh, no.
It's just a thing. It's almost it's a normal thing, but it's too bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, it's a normal
It's
thing.
just
and
the way
Well,
it is,
if
but-
it wasn't a normal thing, our lumber prices would be a lot higher than they are.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's at the end of the day, it's more cost effective to send a few of them that are bowed, crowned, warped, twisted, and know that they're going to be in there and you're going to cull them out than it is to send a perfect bundle of wood over and pay for the cost of that. I think that's what it comes down to. So it's something we're used to, and it's just part of it.
Picking through it.
I mean, if you want to buy Doug fir #1, there's a place in New York that'll send them to you. By the train carload, they don't have a problem.
So before we do move into our wood frame, which may carry into a second part of this podcast, because I know we've got a lot to talk about on wood framing, I wanted to throw in post and beam, which is technically wood framing. It's just not wood framing as we would refer to it. It's not real common around here. We do have some of it though, and it's a more or less a look and an architectural call out more than it is.
That's what I was fixing to say. It's an architectural look in itself, but it has supporting values
Yeah, so
And
there's
Well, it's all fitted.
it's all fitted and
There's-
put together
there's
one way or
post
another.
and beam home builders that build all over the country, and that's how they build a home. Here, we've got typical wood framed wall framers, but we'll have post and beam accents to them, more
Sure.
or less. And the other part that also ties into that's log homes.
Right.
I think that was a resource availability is where that started, and then it was a look, and so people have replicated it, but it's not.
I haven't seen one around this territory. You probably Colorado. Maybe you might see a few.
New Mexico.
How many trees do you see around here?
Well, there's that. I mean,
A log home around here would be about the size of a doghouse.
Exactly.
right. Now you know where all that leftover wood goes. Log homes are cool. I've lived in them. I've helped build them.
They're super cool.
A lot of specialty tools where the ends interlock,
And they do have an R value. Wood's got an R value, one R1 per inch.
Yeah.
So depending on what size logs you're using, you might have a decently well insulated home. They chink them together and get pretty good air tightness out of it.
I think so.
They're-
There again, kind of like that 3D wall, running all your utilities just isn't really very user friendly. Everything, a little surface here, a little box there, a little cut out of the log and some wire mold. It just, not much on the outside walls.
I'm sure there's people out there that specialize in it. They've got a good system. It's just not standardized here, and we're unfamiliar
Yeah.
with it. So it would require a lot of out of the box thinking, which is what we enjoy doing. So
And then it's a standard wood roof.
it
It's
is.
just a standard truss roof or a standard hand cut roof goes right on the logs.
It's also very heavy lifting and hard work, right?
Yeah.
None of it's handled by yourself. Is there any other wall assemblies that we haven't talked about other than wood framing that you guys can think? I know we made a quick list.
Not really. Until we. Nah.
Oh, tilt up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tilt up.
Yeah,
But
didn't we bring up tilt up?
Tilt up, and it almost falls in the masonry category, but yeah, we brought it up last time. It's
Yeah, and tilt up's kind of whoever thought of that one? They were just plain lazy and it worked. I'm not gonna. I have no scaffolding's late. We don't have no scaffolding. Just pour it on the floor.
or they owned a concrete company, maybe. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah. How'd that evolve?
I know the remodel for Academy
Uh-huh.
when they added on that was tilt up.
Yeah, so was Amazon warehouse.
Yeah, Amazon warehouse was tilt up.
Big,
Yeah.
really big, large buildings. You see it.
Yeah.
You ever see him do the actual tilt up itself?
No, but I've seen them. I've had
I never
to.
have.
I've had to
I've seen
look
him
at the
pour it.
rebar.
I've seen him up, but I just never have seen the.
I did get to see because at the time I was driving back and forth going across Amazon almost the whole time.
Oh,
It was
so
being
you saw that.
constructed. So I got to see that. And now it was in 5-minute windows twice a day, but I did get to see a lot.
So it's
of that.
cable and crane. Mm-hmm. So they have some fittings that are poured into it, attachments, and they just tip it up.
Yeah.
And do they put some sort of stop at the bottom so it can't slide?
I would assume it's got a keyway of some sort, but I'm not. Again, I was far enough away driving down the road that I didn't get to see the details of it, but I did get to see it in action. So,
Interesting.
I would think they've got some sort of keyway.
How they
to
connect the
lock those in.
corners?
I have no clue because I didn't ever get to see it done. I mean, just
I mean, they've been doing it forever. I mean, just gigantic, no problem. It's like they do it
it's
in their
not
sleep.
something that we see residentially. So
No.
no, it's just
No,
way too much money for that.
but the thing we do see residentially is wood framed walls. So
Oh,
that's our
yeah.
next subject.
We've been doing that the same way for 50 years.
There's
150
been some
years.
modifications
Yeah.
coming to it. So we've got our standard framing that we'll really talk about a lot. But two of the things that we want to mention before we get into all the parts, the makeups, how it's put together, what those individual pieces are called, and what they do. We've got optimized framing and advanced framing.
Yep.
So I kind of wanted to touch on those. So Joel, why don't you talk about the optimized framing?
The optimized framing is a lot of forethought, and I guess you can call it a kit. You know, everything is cut to fit. All the king studs, trimmers, it's the headers, pieces, the cripples. I can't say cripple, can I? I can say it.
Rafters.
Everything is
Ceiling
cut, and it comes all packaged, labeled with a book, and everything's stamped. The layout is on the plate, and it's just it's nothing that's different in any way. You just take those house plans and you send them in, and they become optimized. And I think there's a trade ready frame is what
Ready frame.
one of the trade names of that type of process.
I think that's Builder First Sources, is
Builder
what they
First
call
Source.
Ready Frame,
It
maybe?
is,
Right.
Isn't that theirs?
And so it maybe takes one for the framer to get used to it. The book's very clear, very easy reading, and instead of just taking your saw and just start whacking up a bunch of random length or the stud length and run out of those, everything's there, and the waste factor is really super great for the economy and everything else. And it's the wood's good. It's good wood.
So you have probably a little bit longer lead time getting that framing package there. So it
Well,
takes
it's
a
a
little bit
lot of pre-planning,
of pre-planning, of course.
right?
But once that pre-planning is done, it shows up on the job site. The framing runs a lot quicker and a lot smoother.
Yeah.
It's a lot quieter on the job site.
all you're hearing is a nail gun or a hammer once in a while.
I don't really think it's for one-off custom stuff. When I was doing it, it was a production thing.
So they've
You know,
with
I mean-
Builder First Source now they've got it, and they've got their not that this is a promotion for them, but they've got their BDLR or BLDR website, builder website, and so now and I don't know that our branch here does it, but they'll actually design a plan for you in house. So they've got BIM modeling, and they've hired tons.
So they'll
of
take your
people.
plan and they'll convert it.
No, they will draw a plan for you.
Oh.
Now they will take your plan and convert it if that's how you want to go at it, but they'll also from scratch draw a plan for
What
you.
do they charge for that fee?
Don't know because I haven't done it. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's you get what you pay for, right? So you're
Right.
getting a 3D model, and you can also on a custom build bring your client in. They can, with a click of a button, change the color of the outside of the house, change the cladding on the outside of the house, change what the windows look like, change interior colors, put furniture in
I
it.
don't think our branch does that.
I don't know that they do here, but
It'd be really fun
there
to
are
see that.
there are branches in Texas that do it, and they would do it via Zoom, because I know they've got the capabilities of doing that, where you would have client meetings, do a run through of that virtual model. Then from that virtual model, they will
optimize it.
They'll give you a ready frame package.
Wow.
And
That's
you-
craziness
you can-
right there.
You can get super detailed with it. If you want a 5-degree slope on your window sills, they'll put that in there. If you want mechanical spaces,
In the floor system,
they
whatever.
can, floor, ceiling. They can put duct chases in it. They can really modify that to what you would want to do. And everyone I've seen that that I'm aware of has also been a truss built at this point. I haven't seen a ready frame hand cut roof
Hand
yet.
cut.
That'd be tough to do.
I'm sure they have the technology.
I
to
imagine
do
the
it.
computer could kick it out, but that would be tough to do.
Maybe so.
Anyway, so optimize is cool.
It's super cool.
We were doing it when we had like three plans, 3 or 4 plans, optimized those, and we ran those in multiple communities. Hey, let's put a 1342 over there. It's already optimized. You know, we already know what it costs. You know,
It certainly makes sense for a production builder standpoint.
it totally makes sense. I don't know if I would go through all that work in a one-off.
And I think depending on your client's expectations, their needs, and their wants, it could be beneficial. You know, there's some clients that are just they get a 7-page set of plans and let's build this house. A lot of it's site built, and it is what it is. And
As built. Yep. A lot of it.
There's things that didn't come out to their exact needs and wants, but they also got a good deal in the house because there wasn't so much pre-planning that was put into it.
Right.
Then there's customers that will spend 2 years on pre-planning to make sure that that outlet lines up with the grout line of the tile they selected because they want to take it to that amount of detail.
No, there are.
And those type of clients, I think, would highly benefit off of some sort of, first of all, BIM modeling, but a ready frame package that would follow that.
So on a ready frame package, the tolerances are obviously going to be tighter than your standard. Just
It's per
less
plan.
less human error. So if the foundation is put in and it's got maybe a degree or two off, is that going to throw a big wrench in the plan?
No, because it still is modifiable, and it's not. So if say you had a foundation that was way off in a truss and something happened where you had an extra foot overhang, that becomes a difficult modification. But on the walls, if you had a hump in the concrete, you could absolutely trim one of those studs a little bit shorter to make the top plate level. So it's you're not consulting an engineer at that point. It's still it's easy to modify if you had to on the job site.
And you know what else would be really good for is if you were going to be framing hotels or apartments.
Yeah, I was
That'd be
going to say
really
hotel
good.
and apartments.
Years ago, I was a framer, and I was the cut guy, and we would do apartments, or 2 or 3 story things, and I would go there a day, or we would build the first floor, and then everybody would leave and go do something else, and I would go there maybe for 3 days and make kits. I'd make king stud trimmers, cripples, headers. And I'd do all my layout, I'd do everything, and I'd just stack it all over this 5,000 square foot floor system. And then I would leave, and then guys would stand all these pieces and parts. And then I'd go to the next floor or the next building, and I would sit and cut. And I'd just cut and cut for all summer long, But if that was already all cut and just came in packages, it would go a lot faster.
But you would have been without a job.
That's okay. I was burned out at that point. I knew that anyway. But I had a big old radial arm saw, and I would just sit out there.
Radial arm saw. Holy moly.
Holy moly. I'd sit out there in the rain with a little tarp thing, and a kid would go get lumber, and I would just chop and cut and do takeoff and mark them and just stack them where they go. But that was Joel's version of optimized framing, but that's what they do now. I mean, there's someone that's cutting rafters, someone that's cutting stairs, someone that's cutting trimmers, king studs, out of random. Yep. The studs come cut length. That's good. But this is all done. It's all figured out. It's all done. And, you can order it in packages. You can order the first floor system, the second floor. But, yeah, you're not cutting. And that's and the cuts are clean, and they're 90-degree cuts. It isn't like you guys kind of balancing in these,
Yeah, no. 3/8 gaps where studs come
right.
in.
So there's precision in that, and it's a good thing.
So advanced framing. Let's move on into that. And advanced framing could be factored into this optimized framing for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Advanced framing is it's framing that's building science has been brought into a little bit, right? So it's the whole reason that we're even using advanced framing is one, it's reducing material that we're using on the house, unnecessary overbuilt material that we've considered. It allows for more insulation in areas that haven't typically been receiving insulation.
Correct.
No cold corners.
No cold corners.
So we've got insulated outside wall corners now.
And no cold end walls either.
End walls, headers. And now we got insulated headers, and then we've, there's different variations of it, and it can be taken to certain degrees of optimization, but a lot of it I'd say the common practice of it is you'll see on like a 2x6 wall framed on 24 centers, and on production houses, you'll see it on 2x4 walls framed on 24 centers where they have to stack the rafters on top of the actual studs for.
Absolutely.
For bearing.
Yeah, bearing to the ground support. But the big concept of it, I think even more so than probably reduction in the waste, is insulation in spots that we wouldn't find in older houses. And if you take a thermal camera in an old house now, you go look at the corner of the house, that thermal camera is going to show blue on that whole corner, blue
and then
above.
there's the thermal bridging of when guys start stacking double king studs, double trimmers, and then if the layout just happens to turn out where it is, they're not thinking about that it's just a little piece under a window anyway. No, they're just going to keep going. Well, it'll take 4 more studs to get to this stud, and
Just might as well put more in
yeah,
there.
next thing you know, there's nothing left but studs. And then so that's a thermal bridge issue.
Yes.
And thermal bridging is a real issue.
It's a big deal, for sure it is. And then like you said, you can't stuff insulation in between, and then, waste of resource, waste of nails.
We talked about this before. It's like a standard wall supposed to be roughly around 20% wood frame material in a wall. And that's for standard layout. Now, standard layout doesn't always happen because you miss the door jamb, so you add 2 more studs to get there because you can, or
you're not thinking.
You're not thinking, and you overcut the window rough opening, so you add another 2x4 in there, and that was seen a lot. Now, when we get into this advanced framing, we're probably reducing that wall framing down to about 15% or so, maybe even less. And we're looking at the whole wall R value, the whole wall assembly R value. That's where insulation, which we'll get into insulation on some of our next phases of construction, but that's where that really starts to play a big difference on what you hear the ROI of R value versus cost. It's usually not factoring in the whole wall R value. Well, when you throw in advanced framing on that and you're adding an extra 5% of insulation area for that wall assembly, it starts making a big difference to what you should be putting into that wall.
Right.
You can almost call advanced framing educated framing.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much just to educate your framer on the 3 or 4. We're talking 3 or 4 things here. This
Yeah.
isn't the 20 item list.
Yeah.
And re-educating anybody is just, hey, can you do us a favor and do these 3 things? And here's a piece of paper that kind of shows you what we need to do. And that's all I'm asking here. And they go, oh, we can do that.
It's funny because we've almost been kind of exact opposite of probably the way a house should be framed. We've got way too much wood in the wall, and then we've got big spans on our roofs.
Yeah, exactly.
Big spans with lightweight decking.
Right. And then I mean, the one of the things you just get that phone call, I need another 40 studs.
Yeah.
I need a 40. Can you deliver? I'm like, you want another 40 studs? What for? And you go out and you look. Yeah, I can see you blew up. You got 44 studs in a 10-foot span there. Of course, you need another 30 studs. So there's a cost factor. So a little education goes a long way, and it saves you a lot of money.
Yeah, and it's not a whole lot of education.
What's it costing for a 2x6
It's very
8-footer
it's a
these
few
days?
simple
$6-8 bucks. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
just
and paying attention to what you're doing.
right. Yeah, we do. We are teaching that at the college. We are teaching it.
It's
so
good. I think it's been around for 20 years, 30 years, but it's becoming popular here.
yeah.
You know, the takeoff that they do at the lumber yard, they aren't even considering that.
No,
For the headers or for any of that stuff.
Well, they haven't been for a long time now. I think both of our lumber yards here now are moving to a digital takeoff, and it's new to them. I'm fairly familiar with digital takeoff because it's what we use. I like to perform our own. I'm sure you do the same way. But you have the ability to make those inputs into it. Absolutely.
Right.
At that point, you're looking at almost a 3D model of where those studs would be placed, and so then you're just factoring your percentage overage of waste, and it's very accurate.
But I think education is key for the lumberyard takeoff, because even if they are using a virtual program for takeoff, they're using LVLs for headers.
They are.
Yeah,
And they're stacking 2 of them with a piece of plywood.
yeah,
waste
and you
of
don't.
money.
It's a waste of money.
And there's your
Absolutely.
thermal bridging, and then there's no R value, and that's just part of their takeoff. And so headers alone, if you did nothing else but just change your headers,
Change your headers to box headers.
Yep.
yeah, box headers, and do the corners correctly, that'd be a big step.
And do your in walls correctly.
That'd be huge. I mean,
Ladder block.
yeah.
I don't care whether you move to 24 inches on center or not. If you just do those 2 or 3
Well,
things, that's
Yeah.
And you introduce a framework to ladder blocking instead of like a C-channel block wall connection that they used to do, and they're like, oh, well, we got enough leftover material. We'll just put some ladder
Right.
blocking
There's
in
a
here,
pile
so
of it sitting right
it's
there.
easier to connect.
it is easier
Yeah.
to connect.
And then you can get insulation in that behind that wall.
Yeah, I've gone back through some of their local framers, and I gave them a hole saw. I said, I need you to make Swiss cheese out of that corner so the insulator can get back there with the foam. Because, and I told the insulator, spray that hole until it comes out of that hole. And that's bad. But that's what I've had to do.
Yeah, it's It's something that I think every builder around here should be educating themselves on and incorporating, because it's a win-win situation.
It's money in their pocket.
They're saving money and they're building
It's
a
just
better
money in their
house.
pocket.
Yeah.
It just takes a little bit of want to do what you're
A
trying to
little
do
bit.
at.
It takes a little bit of forethought. Not much. Just,
No.
I mean, everybody framing, builders that are having their framing done, you can plan all you want, but at the end of the day, you print that plan and you get your red pen out and you make a couple notes, because you're not going to go back to the drafter. You're not going to go back to print. You're going to red line it, and that's all there is to it. It's in my schedule. Red line the print. Make sure the window ROs are there. Red line it. So you can attach a couple of little drawings, the ones that you have for the optimized framing. You can make a few little things, little notes. I even put in little arrows. See this corner? This is what we're expecting. Everything that's got an A would look like this, and red line your plans.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see windows put in a little square and not have so much gap on one side and the window frame.
The rough openings being frame square and
Exactly.
and the windows being put in level and
The
Yeah.
door box would be nice.
yeah.
It wouldn't be like this.
Yeah.
I started checking with that really cool little laser thing. Used to be you just take a 6-foot level, try both sides, and you get the little laser thing, and it just shoots a line up. You go, oh boy, it's not even making it to the top.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that picture?
Yeah, and then it's everybody looking and seeing it, and not just one person's eyes looking at the bubble.
Right.
So,
And the bubble's got plenty of variance.
how many times have you had that, Joel, where somebody sticks a level up there and it's good?
Yeah.
It's good.
Right.
No, it's not.
Close
Let me
enough
see,
for
let me
government
see,
work.
Let me see without my glasses. Oh, that's good. It's still good. Maybe.
Well, before we really get too far in the wood frame walls, the components of it, and I think that's a whole nother podcast on its own. Let's save that for part 2. Let's kind of wrap
Okay.
this one up for part 1. You guys have any kind of closing remarks for today?
Goodbye.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Goodbye.
I'll be
Oh,
really,
yeah, don't forget that if you build it, you break it, you own it, or whatever.
It's not our fault.
What's our disclaimer? Yeah.
Yeah.
You break it, you build it, it's
Not on
broken,
us.
it's not on us.
yeah. If you take our information and it's not right, we hold no
Then- then
responsibility.
you
We
know-
hold no responsibility
And
to
we
it.
revoke that free lunch.
Yeah.
So, if you,
And the hat.
And the hat. So yeah, one more good thought about joining our association.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the association for me
it's
has been,
TPBA is right behind us.
it is, and that's I think that's an advertising
Texas-
slot opportunity up there. Of course, we can do the banners for those who are watching you, or we could do spoken word if you've got something we'd like to have our podcast mention about your company. We'd be happy to bring that on for a sponsorship. That money does go to help support the Builder Association. It's a nonprofit, so we do a lot of good things for the community. It's a great networking association that we have. And that's one thing I've really enjoyed with it. I've been able to further my education, my relationships with vendors, suppliers, other builders.
Right.
And it's not only is it really beneficial to you as a business owner, operator, or a person working in that business, it's a good way just to make friends as well.
Yeah.
Good connections. It's a good tight-knit group of people that we have a lot of fun with. So if you're new listening to this podcast and you're not currently actively involved with the association, maybe you are even a member, I encourage you to get more involved and use those benefits to your advantage. And if you're not a member, get a hold of one of us or somebody that you know is, and we'd be happy to have you for a lunch and show you some of the things that we have going on there. And we're
We've got a lot happening. A lot going on.
really trying to benefit the community here is what this is about.
This is how this spun off.
Yeah, we want
I
to.
mean, we were just hanging out talking about our education platform, and we were going to bore everybody at the lunch for 20 minutes, and then it turned into this, and this is going to go for a while.
Yep.
Yeah, and our goal is not to, hey, this is how much we know. We want to elevate the community as a whole.
Right.
I've always said a rising tide floats all boats, and that's what we need with the construction here in Amarillo, because we are a little bit behind the times in the
We
way
are.
that we construct.
We're going to
things.
start having some guests as well. We have
Yeah.
we have a list, and if you're interested in being a guest,
We'll
when we
absolutely.
get to certain phases of our build, we want to get into plumbing and have someone talk about water heaters. we can get a guest about water heaters. And so, do we know anybody knows anything about water heaters?
I might know a thing or two.
Oh,
Yeah.
just in case.
Now
sorry.
he's going to speak up.
Sorry. And so, where's our podcast on? Where can you get us?
So we're on all the major streaming platforms now. We finally gotten onto.
Are we on Netflix yet?
We're not there yet.
Oh, okay, I just didn't know.
We just need a couple 100,000 more followers.
Okay.
Not a big deal.
Let's get there.
But we do have, we're on Apple, Spotify, I think Google's Play, all your major platform for listening.
And we're on YouTube.
And then as far as the visual side of it, we are on YouTube. That link is also on the TPBA website. And we'd love to have you listen, comments and feedback on any of those channels we're receiving. Working on setting up a.
Maybe we'll check it. Maybe we won't.
Depends on how
Put
nice
one on there.
everybody is.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you can find out how long it takes if you do comment on the channel. And we're working on like a dedicated email host name. I think that way we do have a more instant alert. We have to go back and comb through on each one of the channels for any kind of comments. Especially YouTube's probably going to be the more easy to find if you've got a comment. But soon we'll have an email that you guys can send in comments, questions, or if you want to be a part of the show.
Are you gals?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's
Guys or gals?
guys or gals.
in.
I was part of Amarillo College's 360 success over the last 2 days, and I don't know, somewhere between, I didn't count them all, but in that one exhibit hall, we probably had 500 to 700 seniors that came through and looked at it, and I was shocked at the number of girls that actually came and looked at construction technology. And so I'm beginning to see a little tide turn where we're getting women that are
In the
coming
trades.
in the trades, and I'm glad to see it.
It's a good thing.
It is a real good thing.
And not to get gender biased on the
No,
podcast.
absolutely not.
But the women do have a lot of attributes that are really helpful in construction.
The guys just don't.
The guys we've been missing in construction.
Yeah.
And I think that's becoming aware, and we're really starting to capitalize on that. And,
Yeah.
And kind of not advertise isn't the right word, but help promote, bring those in.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything else, guys?
Nothing I could think
That's
of.
all I got.
Well, I know we enjoyed it. Thanks for you listeners and watchers out there. Until next
See ya.
time,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a great day.